Hi watercolor besties! In this tutorial we're going to paint this really cute cow with a floral crown. If you're ready, go ahead and grab your watercolor paints, your color pencils, and let's get started. This sketch is available at the link in the description box. I'm using my Holbein paints and I forgot to clean my palette, so I just like to spritz a little bit of water and then just wipe it away with a paper towel. I'm using the round size 6 brush for the majority of this painting, and then later I'll use a round size 2. I'm preparing a couple different brown colors like the burnt sienna, some sepia, and just seeing what it looks like when it's mixed together. I'm going to paint a brown cow, so I don't want to just paint it one color. I really want to show a range of hues. After I draw my sketch, I like to use a kneaded eraser to just get rid of the majority of the pencil lines. I love using the kneaded eraser, so make sure to have this in your toolbox. I'll leave a link to it in the description box below as well. One thing of kneaded eraser can last you a pretty good long while, so it's definitely worth the investment. This way your pencil lines won't get in the way of your painting. When I paint animals, I really like to use the wet on wet technique. So I'm using the round size 6 brush and working in sections. As you can see, I just laid down some clean water on the outside of this left ear, and then going in with a little bit of the brown and then just letting it spread. I'm leaving a little bit of white space just kind of spontaneously. Remember, you can always fill in later. The inside of the ear is a little bit darker, so I'm using that sepia color and the wet on wet technique again, and just letting the pigment just spread spontaneously. If you need a refresher on the wet on wet technique or to understand how wet your paper is, make sure to check out this video linked above that kind of goes over the basic technique of wet and wet, and it explains the 6 stages of paper wetness. I'm using the exact same method on the right side, wetting the paper first and then dropping in some pigment. The wet on wet technique creates that fuzzy texture that you can't really get with the wet on dry technique. So that's why I like to do this as my first layer. If I feel like I need to add some more layers, then I'll do that with the wet on dry technique, but this is a great place to start. Next, I'm using the brilliant pink color for the nose. I'm painting the entire nose pink for now, but I'm definitely going to add some more details like spots and some shadows. The next section I'm going to work on are the left and right sides of the faces. And I'm using that same technique that I did on the ears, where I'm wetting the paper first and then dropping in paint. In this section, I'm going to be even more free with my color choices. I'm going to start with my burnt sienna, but then I'm going to pick up some sepia and just really let it mix on the paper. I'm using just the tip of my brush to kind of get into the corners. I know it looks a little funny right now, but you have to kind of just trust the process. Make sure to leave space for the eye. And it looks even funnier because the forehead space is also blank, but that's where the floral crown's going to be. Let's repeat that step on the right side. All right, it's looking great. I think the nose is pretty much dry, so I'm going in there with a Payne's gray color and filling in the nostrils. At this point, the ears are definitely dry, so I added just a little bit of burnt sienna to my brilliant pink color, and then using a lot of water, a very light value, I'm just painting in the ears. Now for the floral crown and the details. I'm using my round size 2 brush, and I'm going to paint a cluster of roses and some leaves around it. If you're not sure how to paint roses, I have a really easy way of painting them in this video. You can find it linked above and in the description box below. But you can do any flower that you want. You can do sunflowers, daisies, even just simple 5-petal flowers. It doesn't have to be anything too fancy. I just kind of default to roses. And when I do my flowers like this, I usually like to do an analogous color scheme. That way each flower looks a little bit unique. And so I have a reddish color, a pinkish color, and a red-orange color. For the green, I love to use my Terre Verte color. It's a little bit more opaque, so even if I paint on top of the brown of the cow, it's still going to stand out. Okay, for the eyes, I'm going to use the Payne's Gray color again. I love Payne's Gray, sometimes more than the black because it's slightly bluish. And so it's just a great way to create shadow colors. And sometimes the black can be a little too black, if you know what I mean. And sometimes it just looks a little bit unreal. So the Payne's Gray is a great second option. If you don't have Payne's Gray, that's okay. Start with a black and mix in just a little bit of blue at a time to get the faintest blue-black. For the eyes, if the round size 2 brush is still too big, that's okay. Go down a size if you need to a size 1 or to a size 0. And I love to add luscious lashes to my cows, so make sure to add that if you like that. For any details like this, you really want to make sure that your brush is not overly wet. You also want to make sure that your paint is not runny. So to figure that out, when I load my brush with my color, I usually tap it once or twice on the paper towel just to remove that excess water and paint. And then when I'm picking up paint, as I'm kind of, mixing it in the palette or in the pan, I make sure to pick up just the smallest amount. Having the eyes painted just really brings everything together, doesn't it? Oh, I really like how she's turning out so far. Okay, I'm going to add some dry brush details to the white part of my cow. So I picked up just a little bit of brown and then I blotted a lot of the water off of it so I can just go over the texture of the paper. It's just the faintest little detail that kind of hints at the cow's hair. If it was completely white, it would look just slightly unnatural, so that's why I did that. Next, I'm going in with my Caran d'Ache Pablo colored pencils. This will also be linked in the description box below, and just adding a little bit of hair details here and there, especially to the edges of the ears and maybe the cheeks. I'm not overdoing it, just a little bit here and there is really all it needs. And this step is also optional. You don't have to use a color pencil if you don't have it, or you can do this with the dry brush technique as well. Sometimes I just feel like I have a little bit more control. And I also like that mixed media look. And I like how the color pencils look over cold pressed watercolor paper since it has a little bit of that texture. Now the last bit of detail I'm going to work on is on the snout of the cow, and I really like that spotted look. So there is really no rhyme or reason to where I'm placing this spot. If it helps, you can use a reference photo, but I'm just kind of going with my gut feeling. And I'm using a slightly lighter value of both the brown and the sepia color. And just kind of going around, I'm using oblong shapes. I'm painting along the edges. I'm putting down a couple spots here and there. Just add a little bit at a time and space them far out. Kind of take a step back, look at it, and then keep adding more. It's really easy to get carried away with something like this. So just take it one step at a time. I think I'm at a good stopping point here with the snout. So now I'm just adding any final details, like a little bit of shadow underneath the floral wreath here, a little bit of dry brushing, again, to kind of show more of the cow's hair texture. And remember that this final layer really needs to be done with the least amount of water on your brush as possible. Let's add just a little bit more definition to the face, like the brow bone and the under eye, the cheek area, just to define the face shape a little bit more. But otherwise, this is basically done. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you'll give this video a like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know in the comments what I should name this cow, and if you're gonna try out this tutorial. If you're on social media and share your work, please tag me at Audrey Ra Design and use the hashtag #PaintWithAudrey. And if you're not a fan of brown cows, paint a black cow. See how lovely this one turned out. Thanks again so much. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time. Bye.